Fox News anchor Martha MacCallum corners John Kirby regarding Twitter's collusion with China, and we have Ron DeSantis giving his explanation as to why there wasn't a red wave in this last midterm election. All of that and more here on The Bald Brad Show. Welcome to The Bald Brad Show. It is Friday, December 2nd, and as always, support the show by hitting that like and subscribe button, as well as leaving your opinions in the comment section below regarding anything that we cover in today's episode. Folks, the YouTube algorithm really does love you engaging and interacting with the channel, so by you hitting that like and leaving a comment down below does yeoman's work in supporting the channel, and it forces the YouTube algorithm to send our videos out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. So your help and support would be greatly appreciated. And with that being said, we got two clips here for you today. Our lead story of the day is Fox News anchor Martha MacCallum going head-to-head with John Kirby here regarding the White House going after Twitter, but not going after Apple for Apple colluding in China regarding the Chinese protests that are taking place over there. And boy, oh boy, he must have been rubbing shoulders with Karine Jean-Pierre a little bit too much here because, God, he sounds a lot like her. He fumbles through his words. He don't know what to say, and he's caught lying. Without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
But why not say something to Apple? Because we were just told the other day that the White House is keeping an eye on Elon Musk and Twitter. So why would you say that from the podium? You didn't say it, but Karine Jean-Pierre said it, and not call Apple out for helping the Chinese government to suppress their own people's ability to communicate?
Again, I think we've been very clear and consistent on this. Certainly publicly, we've been very open about our desires to be able to see citizens communicate. And you know, Apple, if this is a decision that they're making, then they should have to speak to that. But we can't, and we aren't in the business of telling private companies how to execute their initiatives.
Yeah, but Twitter's a private company too. So why is Twitter getting one treatment and Apple's getting another? Is my question.
Well, these are completely two different circumstances. You're talking about the potential. Well, you're talking about the potential for perhaps foreign investment and involvement in the management of Twitter. That's a different issue than what we're talking about here, which is a business decision by Apple with respect to how one of their applications is being utilized.
Certainly, they're getting influence.
A business decision on how one of their applications being utilized over at Apple by working in conjunction with the Chinese government to suppress speech by Chinese protesters. So they're able to determine how they want their app to work. But when Twitter does the exact same thing, which is another private company, on handling misinformation, hate speech, disinformation, whatever it may be, all of a sudden, all the eyes of the federal government, the White House, executive branch are on that app. They're on Twitter. They're looking at Elon. But hey, you know what? We're all for this one app or Apple working in conjunction with the Chinese government. Talk about splitting hairs, you guys, and talk about a lot of BS that just came out of that man's mouth. Like I said, he's rubbing shoulders with Karine Jean-Pierre or something because, God, oh God, they're mimicking one another from saying, oh, we've been so clear on this, to then BSing an answer from a question of which was asked, but then flips it to answer a question that was never asked. Typical of the White House.
By a foreign government, and that government is China. And Apple's policies, they've changed policies specifically for China when it comes to what they put on their phones.
Right.
I mean, that seems like something that the White House ought to be able to keep an eye on.
I certainly think that's a fair question to ask Apple and try to make them communicate why they did this.
But I'm asking, has the White House done that? Have you reached out to them as a matter of national security, since we obviously have national security concerns with China, who they seem to be aiding in this process?
Sure. I don't have any communications to speak to specifically with Apple executives. Again, it's a private.
Convenient, right? Convenient. I always like to point out, can we just call the elephant out in the room? Where's the World Health Organization? Where's the UN? Where's anybody out on the fact that China literally released a virus out there for the globe and lied about it? Where are they paying the damages? We should, you know what? Why don't they forfeit the debt that we have with them? That could be a good start. Or why don't they give us a boatload of money, however it may work? But we're not going to talk about that because the Biden administration is in bed with the Chinese government, folks. We've talked about the business handlings from his son, Hunter Biden. He's the big guy. Somehow 1 million barrels of oil goes to the province of where Hunter Biden and the Biden family have some investments in. How'd that happen? And that's from our petroleum reserve, by the way, from Americans. So it's thing after thing after thing. And God, I can't wait till Elon releases the documents, folks, showing the Biden administration trying to work in conjunction with Twitter before Elon got it to suppress speech, to suppress conservatives, Republicans, and sit there and peddle and meddle in our elections. I can't wait for it to drop, but let's continue.
private company. They make these policies, and they should have to answer for that. What we want to see is that citizens are reliably able to communicate, whether it's a time of crisis or not.
Yeah, but I go back to this same thing, because we were just told that the White House will keep an eye on Twitter because they're concerned about the new Twitter 2.0 that Elon Musk is putting in, where he wants more free speech on Twitter. So they're going to keep an eye on Twitter, and yet you're taking a hands-off approach. You say there's been no communication with Tim Cook at Apple about this process in China with the Chinese government?
Martha, I'm not aware that there's been any conversations specifically with Apple on this particular issue. It's a private company. And as for Twitter, again, Martha, these are apples and oranges.
He keeps saying it's a private company, but so's Twitter. Again, it goes back to the same thing. And this is where you see the BSing from time and time again. It all falls through the cracks. They're going to sit there and say that they're not paying attention. Oh, Apple could do whatever they want, but Twitter can't. But yet all eyes are going to be on Twitter. We're going to watch them for hate speech, misinformation, all these other things. All the while, for years, Twitter, when it was ran by these woke leftists, these progressive leftists, in conjunction with pockets of the Democrat Party, were suppressing the speech of conservatives and Republicans. They were suppressing advertisement from conservatives and Republicans as well, meddling in our elections, possibly working with the Biden administration and Democrats to do so. And Elon's talking about releasing it all. And God, oh God, I can't freaking wait. I know I'm repeating myself, but this guy right here is going to split hairs like that. And in a sense, BS all of you to our faces. And normally, John Kirby doesn't do that much BSing. He lies to us and manipulate and twist stuff, but not like this. And when we're talking about an enemy or an adversary, and you got a corporation that's working in conjunction with it in collusion, private or not, man, what the hell? You're talking to a conservative Republican. I think I enjoy the freedoms and liberties that private companies should have. But if you're working with an enemy in collusion and you're sitting there running an app to suppress the speech of others, but yet you're supposed to uphold free speech, and you're working with a foreign government to suppress the speech of others, who the hell does that, and why is that okay? But he doesn't know anything about this. It's so amazing. And if you recall, Philip Wegman of Real Clear Politics asked the White House, God, it must have been 4 or 5 times, regarding TikTok and how TikTok has been enabling features on there to follow certain government officials and follow Americans and track them and trace them. And they had no idea. Oh, well, at first it was, well, we don't have a clue. I'll get back to you on it. They never got back to the man, even though he asked about 3 times. Then he asks again, and all of a sudden there's some sort of small investigation on it that's not pertaining to his question, but yet they still can't answer because there's some sort of investigation going. But then when it's about Apple, they don't have a clue. But then when they're asked a question about Twitter, they're watching it all closely, folks. All eyes are on it. We know what's going on. We're monitoring the situation. It's a little weird. It's really weird. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments below, folks. I would love your input on it. That moves us into our next story of the day regarding Florida Governor Ron DeSantis giving his opinion and his take on kind of what happened in the midterms and why there wasn't a red wave. If you haven't already, folks, hit that like and subscribe button. And we're doing a little campaign here of helping and supporting the show by leaving us a comment down below, again, and hitting that like button. It does yeoman's work in supporting us. We would really love your help here. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said during a press conference Thursday that Republicans underperformed in the 2022 midterms because they did not focus on delivering for voters. And I think there's a lot of truth to what he has to say here. The audio is kind of shoddy, but I think it's good enough for you to hear. And if we're missing anything, I'll make sure I kind of fill in the pockets. Let's go ahead and roll it.
I'm not going to ask you if you're running for president. You've probably heard that one a couple times already. You certainly have your pulse on national politics. And given the rumors that are swirling, I'm curious, what is your take on Mr. Trump being back in the news every day, and what is your take? You enjoy a healthy Republican Party in Florida, but nationally the Republican Party is divided. So can you elaborate for us on those 2 specific items, national Republican politics, and your take on Mr. Trump being on the news every day?
Well, look,
He is your resident, by the way.
we understand, but I also got 22 million others, and we got to look out for everybody. And so we're focusing on getting things done, doing our job, and that's what we're going to continue to do. I think the election, it was interesting. You know, we knew we were going to do well because we worked hard. You know, we delivered a good message. We had a lot of enthusiasm, and we saw it not just in places like Miami-Dade, which, you know, was historic, but place like Palm Beach, which is even more historic. I mean, it's been almost 40 years since a Republican governor candidate has been able to carry that county. And so you see that. And of course, we had a lot of great people running in the legislature and the Senate, and those have been big majorities. And so we knew it. We saw it on even just the early vote came in.
I would like to point out, I mean, that really did contribute to a lot of Ron DeSantis' success, is the fact that the legislator was red. And so you could really push through a lot of your agenda when you have that. And so he really capitalized on that and pushed through a lot of stuff and really spoke up for parents. He spoke up for the citizens. He spoke up to his constituents and spoke for them and really did a great job. Doesn't always flow through in other states when you have a mixed, fractured state, meaning the governor might be Democrat, but the legislature is red, or vice versa. It's a little bit harder to push things through. We've seen that in California before, where you have a governor that's Republican, but your legislature is Democrat. You don't really get much done, and things just kind of stay the same. And then, you got Democrats run the show and they just run into the ground. You got Republicans run the show. Things are looking good. So just wanted to point that out based on what he said.
We're winning Dade going away. And so they call the race. We see good stuff. It gets into 9 o'clock. I give the speech and I go back afterwards. And some of my folks were like, Governor, this is not a red wave. I was like, what are you talking about? This is not a red wave. This is a 20-point. When have we ever seen that? No. Florida is a big win. But the rest of the country, we are not seeing really good performance from a lot of these Republicans. They're like, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to win the Senate. The House is going to be very close. We assumed we were going to end up with like 245 House members. We're at 222, it looks like.
I think there's some truth with the House, but remember early on, for those frequent Ball Bradshaw listeners and viewers, we did talk about 3 different polls. There was a poll early on, I'm talking way early on, that did talk about a red wave, and we were talking in terms of like a red tsunami. And then a few months went by, and there was another poll that was conducted that showed more of a realistic viewpoint of what actually turned out to happen. Where, maybe we'll get the Senate, we'll see, we'll definitely get a few House seats. It's not going to be a red wave. And we did do an episode on the Ball Brad Show and actually talked about that. I said, look, guys, it's kind of sketchy. It's kind of scary with what's going on now. And then we saw another poll about a month or two after that, which was the most recent one, that said, hey, there's a red wave coming. This is what we were expected to see. So it was that middle poll of which that was conducted that was really utilized to see, hey, this is more realistic of what's going to take place. And that's what we saw.
Which is a huge underperformance. And so, the question is, why did that happen? Because the way these midterms work, someone gets elected to the White House and then there's a reaction the other way. That's what happens almost every 2 years. And especially when people are pessimistic about the direction of the country, have a negative view on Biden, usually those voters are going to want to vote for people that are offering an alternative. And yet some of those voters throughout the country, not in Florida, but throughout the country, even though they disapproved of Biden, even though they disapproved of the direction of the country, they still didn't want to vote, for some of our candidates. So I don't think it's a question necessarily being divided as a party. I think it's like, okay, how do you run and win majorities? And I think what we've done in Florida is we've shown that we've exercised leadership. We've not kowtowed. We've been willing to take on big interests just look at the environment, what we did coming in. Look at what we've done with some of these other things, but producing results. And then that ends up attracting more people to want to be on your team. And so that was not something that was happening, throughout the rest of the country. But I think that we really showed, how it's done in the state of Florida. And if you look about, how we performed, no governor Republican has ever gotten a higher percentage of the vote in Florida history than we got in 2022. So
I appreciate Ron DeSantis taking the moment here and kind of capitalizing on the spotlight for the work that not only he has done, but also just Florida in general, as well as the politicians and the legislature that's been there. I think it's a good job of him to actually highlight that. But I don't fully agree with him, because the things that take place in Florida is different for new governors or new House of Representative candidates running in their state, because some of them don't have the opportunity to have that prior history of doing good things in conjunction with their legislature to push through for their state. And quite frankly, the Republican Party also nominated and put in place people that just frankly weren't good candidates. Look at Pennsylvania. Oz and Fetterman, they literally voted for a guy that had a stroke, that couldn't actually understand questions nor could talk correctly. Granted, we saw that with Biden too. Look at guy can't even read a teleprompter, fumbles through his words, gets lost all the time, falls up a flight of stairs 3 times. We can go on and on about Joe Biden here. So I agree with parts of what Ron DeSantis is saying, but at the same time, I don't, in the sense of trying to utilize the method of what we saw in Florida with other states. I don't think that is a great comparison. It is a rough analogy to use, and rough analogies are fine, but I do agree with majority of what he said here. It also just has to do with our candidates. Our candidates kind of sucked. I think Kerry Lake should have won in Arizona. Something's going on there. So again, even that analogy that I gave doesn't flow through consecutively. I think there was a lot of problems with the Republican Party, And I think, quite frankly, it just goes to show you guys that 2024 ain't in the pocketbook. All right. If Trump runs, honestly, I think Trump's going to lose. I want to know what you think in the comments below. If there's a Trump-Biden ticket, Trump v. Biden, do you think Trump's really going to win? I personally, based on what we saw in the midterms, say no. Look at everything that's going on. Look at the way Joe Biden's running this country into the ground, and Democrats still did well in the Senate, and they still did pretty well in the House as well. So I don't know. It ain't looking good. You probably want to look more for a DeSantis v. Biden ticket or DeSantis v. anybody else, because right now in the polls, DeSantis is beating Trump. Even among Trump supporters are more inclined to vote for DeSantis than they are Trump, put it that way. And quite frankly, I'm kind of in that boat myself. I think of DeSantis as Trump 2.0. I love Trump, you guys. Don't come at me. I'm a Trump supporter, all right? I voted for the guy twice. If he runs again, obviously it's a shoo and vote for me. But what I'm saying is that there's people that are upgraded. There are people that are, in my opinion, better than Trump. And I think DeSantis is one of them. I think you just got a better version of Trump here. He doesn't put up with the media's crap. He doesn't put up with the left's crap. He pushes back. He pushes back in a way that actually is more presentable as a president than maybe Trump did, even though, again, I like Trump's New Yorkerness. I like how he goes after people. It's from China. It's not xenophobic. It's not racist from China. I love it. But I'm just saying, for a president, I think Ron has the spotlight right now, and I think he should shine. I think Trump had his moment. I think he did necessary things for us here. I think he did a lot of good, a lot of great things. I think he did some things that were bad as well. But for the most part, I think he's a net positive. Or I think Ron DeSantis is a net positive as well. But I want to know what you think in the comments below. Do you agree with Ron DeSantis? And also, don't forget, let me know the Trump v. Biden ticket on who you think is going to win. Again, my opinion is Trump would lose that ticket. But let me know down in the comments below. Hope you all are having a lovely Friday. And folks, I'll see you tomorrow here on The Ball Brat Show.